Hey guys, this is Nick with PhoneArena and you're now watching our video review of the Sony Xperia ZL. This is a high-end Android device that got announced in early 2013 alongside the company's current flagship device, the Sony Xperia Z. Actually, in terms of specs, the two are very similar. The Xperia ZL comes with the same 5-inch 1080p display, it has the same 1.5 GHz quad-core processor, and on its back we have an identical 13-megapixel camera. However, the Xperia ZL is slightly more compact than the Xperia Z and it comes with a larger battery. But on the other hand, it is thicker and doesn't look as visually appealing as its bigger brother. In fact, we find the design of the Sony Xperia ZL rather boring, even though it has adopted some of the visual cues from the Sony Xperia Z. And that's not only because it is relatively thick for a high-end Android device, it's also because of that plastic back cover, which looks way too ordinary. We just don't think that material like this really belongs to a high-end smartphone. As a result, the Sony Xperia ZL simply lacks that wow factor that we've come to expect from top-of-the-line smartphones nowadays. On paper, the Sony Xperia ZL is supposed to be the most compact 5-inch smartphone in existence, with over 3/4 of its front side occupied by its large display. But in reality, the difference between holding the ZL and one of its 5-inch competitors isn't as striking as Sony wants you to think. In fact, the Xperia Z would have been a lot more comfortable to use if it didn't have those pointy edges. And yes, using the Xperia ZL with a single hand is still not perfectly comfortable, but that's a trait common for all smartphones of this size. On the bright side of things, we are extremely pleased with how much grip the textured soft touch backplate provides. What's more is that absolutely no fingerprints stick to it, so it looks clean and pristine almost all of the time. The physical buttons are another detail executed flawlessly. They're all exposed well and easy to access, while the camera shutter key isn't prone to accidental presses. Just like many other high-end Androids, the Sony Xperia ZL comes with a 5-inch display offering an outstanding resolution of 1080 by 1920 pixels. The high pixel count is undoubtedly the most awesome thing about the smartphone's screen, as the level of detail it provides is superb, so even the finest lines of text are always sharp, while graphics are extremely smooth and pleasant to look at. Sadly, the display's viewing angles are far from impressive. Tilting the phone to the side results in a drastic color degradation and loss of contrast. And speaking of contrast, that's another thing that the screen could have had more of. Well, actually, the mobile Bravia 2 engine improves things a bit, but that's only active when viewing photos and videos in their respective applications. Using the Xperia ZL on a bright sunny day isn't much of a problem once the screen sets its brightness up to the maximum. The outdoor visibility of the Xperia ZL is comparable to that of other high-end Android smartphones. Android 4.1.2 comes running out of the box on the Sony Xperia ZL, but an update to 4.2 is surely coming in the future. Naturally, Sony has not forgotten to customize heavily the interface of the system, thus making it more functional and more beautiful. One of the things we quite like is that you can pick from a number of themes, which customize the interface of the device. These set different wallpapers for both your home screen and the lock screen, and also change the accent color throughout the interface. Another handy feature that we're quite happy with are the so-called small apps. Think of them as applications that run in their own small window hovering above the UI. These include a calculator, a voice recorder, a notes application, a timer, and a small application that allows you to use the smartphone's built-in infrared controller. When it comes to widgets, you get the usual set included with Android 4.1, but a few handy tools by Sony have also been thrown in. Among them is a widget for easy access to the contacts you've recently called, a couple of social networking widgets, toggle buttons for a number of the phone's functions, and a notes widget. We have no complaints whatsoever about the on-screen keyboard. In fact, we have to give Sony a thumbs up for adding a keyboard that is so smart and customizable. The user is free to tweak its layout and skin, while the list of additional languages that can be added for typing is very long indeed. And yes, with its large, easy-to-press buttons and built-in word prediction that speaks multiple languages, typing on the virtual keyboard is an effortless task. Social life is one of the unique applications that Sony has added to the Xperia ZL. Think of it as a hub that aggregates your social networking feeds under one roof. Of course, Facebook and Twitter are supported, but you can also add YouTube and Google Reader to the subscription list. The app may come in handy for heavy social networking users, but its visual presentation leaves room for improvement. Since the Sony Xperia ZL comes with a built-in infrared blaster, you can use it to control your TV or home theater system. This is done with the remote control application. We gave it a try and we were pleased with how easy to use and set up this application is. And Sony Car is the application you'll need if you ever intend to use the Xperia ZL while driving, even though you probably shouldn't. Basically, it serves as an interface replacement with large, easy-to-press buttons, providing shortcuts to applications you might need while driving, such as the GPS navigation or the music player. With its quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro system on a chip running at 1.5 GHz, the Sony Xperia ZL sure has the power to be a flawlessly performing smartphone, and to no surprise, we got some great benchmark scores. 3D games, even the most demanding available on Android, run smoothly despite the screen's high resolution. Applications launch in an instant and switching between them happens in the blink of an eye thanks to the 2 GB of RAM that are on board. Choppiness is a very rare event on the Sony Xperia ZL, occurring only if there is something going on in the background or if there's a gazillion widgets loaded on all of its home screens. So if performance is what you value the most, then chances are that you won't be disappointed with the Sony Xperia ZL. Surfing the web using the Sony Xperia ZL is a pleasure, not only because the Chrome web browser has no troubles rendering even the heaviest of web pages, but also because there's a large screen that you can view entire web pages on. And its high resolution means that you'll be able to read even the smallest of text. Since this is Chrome, we're working with our desktop bookmarks, and opened pages are accessible on the phone and vice versa. The Xperia ZL is outfitted with the best smartphone camera module that Sony has to offer, the 13-megapixel Exmor RS with short startup times and a rapid burst mode. In fact, the camera needs less than 2 seconds to take a shot even from the lock screen. Just hold down the dedicated shutter key and aim. Alternatively, this button can be set to launch the camera interface instead of taking a photo. And here we are at the camera interface on the Sony Xperia ZL. What we like about it is that there are many built-in picture effects, scenes, and many settings to adjust. However, what we're not so happy with is the so-called superior auto mode, which is set by default. It takes good photos most of the time, but at times it can be very unpredictable. That's why experienced photographers would probably want to use normal mode instead, but beginners will probably have to stick with superior auto mode. We took a bunch of daytime shots on a bright sunny day and they all looked great. They weren't perfect, but were well worthy of being printed out and hung on a wall. We do have a few complaints, however, one of them being that the camera has a tendency of smearing out fine details. The other one is that around edges, some weird purplish shadows occur in some frames. But those are visible only when the photos are viewed at 100% zoom, so these imperfections aren't bothersome at all. Indoor photos look a bit less impressive as their colors are somewhat inaccurate, but at least the LED flash is capable of providing a decent amount of illumination. Now it's time to take a look at the Walkman music player, which comes loaded on the Sony Xperia ZL. Quite frankly, this has to be one of the best stock music players we've seen recently. It comes with all necessities such as the lock screen controls, the controls in the drop-down notification menu, but in addition, it has the ability to download music information for your music collection in case it's missing. In addition, there are a ton of settings such as audio enhancements, the equalizer and the bass booster, for example, but there's also X-Loud, which enhances the audio that comes out of the built-in speaker of the Sony Xperia ZL. The stock video player may be basic in terms of features, but it handles all kinds of video without breaking a sweat. Every video file format that we threw on it was playable all the way up to 1080p resolution. Phone calls made using the Sony Xperia ZL are of average quality. Voices are sufficiently loud both through the earpiece and on the other side of the line, but for some reason the sound is also a tad muffled on both ends. At least the secondary microphone does a good job at cancelling out background noises. With its 2370 mAh battery, the Sony Xperia ZL can deliver 10 hours of continuous talk time or 50 hours of standby, which are decent figures. The battery's longevity can be extended with the built-in stamina mode, which disables the phone's power-hungry features whenever these aren't needed. Note that the smartphone's battery is sealed and cannot be swapped if that's needed. So in conclusion, the Sony Xperia ZL is a smartphone for those who value functionality over fashion. It may lack visual appeal, but the more we used it, the more we got used to its peculiarities. It's a very capable multimedia device that delivers nearly flawless performance with its powerful quad-core processor, while the 13-megapixel camera on its back will capture those special moments in great clarity. Of course, there are alternatives to the Sony Xperia ZL, and one of them is the Xperia Z, which is sleeker, slimmer, and resistant to water damage. And if your budget can handle it, you should also check out the Samsung Galaxy S4, which is currently considered one of the best smartphones money can buy. If you're a fan of premium materials, then you should also check out the HTC One, which comes in a great aluminum body, but also offers a slightly smaller display. Thank you for watching our video review of the Sony Xperia ZL. This is Nick with PhoneArena. For more information about this great Android smartphone, feel free to visit our website, PhoneArena.com.